So, welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for returning after the lunch. We know it's an hard choice, but no, we're joking. Thank you for everybody for being back here. We know that some people are still coming up, but we have to start for this first section of the afternoon.
And we should looking forward.
Yeah.
That's the title of our new session. It's Looking Forward, New Perspectives for European Universities. So we invite our moderator, Ligia Deca. Yes, Ligia Deca, sorry. Yeah. Presidential advisor to the President of Romania, Department of Education and Research, and also one of our members of the International Advisory Board. So,
yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad to be here. It's a dream come true to be able to stand in such a room, which reminds us of the rich history that European universities have, and of the great privilege to be here for the 800th anniversary of the University of Padua. And I'm also honored to be moderating this panel, which tries to look forward and see how we envisage the future of the European universities. Most presentations talk about the idea of European universities stemming from the Sorbonne speech of President Emmanuel Macron in 2017. But for those of us immersed in the history of higher education initiatives, a different reality comes to the fore. Andrew Gunn documented in an article in 2020 the history of the idea of European universities. And in fact, the idea is as old as the European Union or the European community itself. Right after the Second World War, German economist Alfred Müller-Armack believed that European integration required a community of intelligence. A supranational university would fulfill this requirement, he said, while also acting as a role model institution. This idea linked with more generous idea, that of cultural community, cultural integration in Europe, which was put forward by Hallstein, an important German diplomat, in 1955, was the base of a so-called German position, which was basically that a European-wide university would be an intellectual homeland to nurture a European elite. Now, that didn't prove to be the #1 priority post-war when it came to building a European community, but the idea didn't go away. In the usual debate about what Europe should stand for and what Europe should be based on, the German-French division came again to the fore. France disagreed in the 1950s and 1960s and argued for a more utilitarian view. They also saw a role for supranational universities, but they saw them as linked to top research priorities for Europe. In this case, it was the need for a supranational university for nuclear energy research and training, and this idea actually appeared in the Euratom Treaty. So you see this battle between a union of culture and social solidarity and a union of development in economy and trade is definitely not new, but it brings us closer to the current idea of the European university. Now, of course, at the time, there was a strong opposition from Western university leaders for such a supranational entity to appear. But that didn't stop the Italians, because we're here, to actually make a step back from the French-German division and actually set up the European University Institute, which started functioning in 1972, but this was not exactly the supranational university that the initial thinkers have put forward, but it was a school for European elites. The idea of European universities came back in 2005 when José Manuel Barroso talked about the European Institute of Technology, who initially should have had a campus in Strasbourg. That didn't happen either. What did happen, though, is that in 2017 in Sorbonne, when launched by President Macron, this idea took root in a very special context, which called for a Europe of values, a Europe of solidarity. And this is why, just a few years later, we're 5 years from that speech, almost 5 years, or 4 years and a half, and we already have 41 university alliances, which is twice as much as President Macron imagined in his speech. Actually, he called for 20 universities before 2024. We seem to have exceeded his expectations. And I think this goes in line with the accelerated rate of development when societies are faced with crises, which are also moments of opportunity. Now, I think we have come a long way, and I think this idea was distilled in 3 years' time to become the generous ideal that we now have. So I'm very honored to moderate this panel, which will be started by Ms. Vanessa Debiais-Sainton, which is the head of the unit on higher education of the European Commission. She will tell us more about the vision for the European University Initiative and what we should look forward to when it comes to policy plans. Right after, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. And afterwards, I'm happy that I will be able to introduce Professor Massimiliano Zattin, Vice Rector of the Postgraduate and Doctorate programs at the University of Padua here, and Professor Patrycja Matus, which is Vice Rector for International Projects and Relations at the University of Wroclaw. And I think it's very important that we have here the voice of a university, of a founding university of the Arqus Alliance, and a university which joins now in this new phase of the project. So thank you very much, and I look forward to listening to the interventions and then to your debates with the speakers. Thank you.
Good afternoon again, all of you. So, building on what I said this morning, that a sustainable and long-term perspective on university cooperation across borders is more needed than ever. Indeed, because to build a strong, resilient, democratic, and peaceful Europe, we need to defend and promote European democratic and academic values, as we just said, and we need a transformative vision for universities to address complex challenges and multiple crises indeed. And we need for that deeper transnational cooperation among higher education institutions to be even more creative and stronger together. So this is precisely what the recently adopted European strategy for universities is about. The strategy has at its core to build a strong, resilient, democratic and peaceful Europe, defending and promoting European democratic and academic values, allowing knowledge to circulate and stimulating innovation are the vital element of our collective action. We can be very happy that today, this morning, the education ministers of all the member states have just adopted very supportive council conclusions on this European strategy for universities. And they have also adopted a very important text, which is a council recommendation for deeper transnational cooperation, which addresses many of the challenges that you shared with us last year on what are the most pressing challenges that you are facing with your European university. It does not solve everything, let's be honest, but it provides first solutions to these challenges. It triggered a lot of passionate discussions in the council, but here we are. We made very good progress, and we have a very good, I would say, compromise text now adopted today. And as part of this higher education package, so the strategy and the council recommendation, this provides the support for 4 key flagships. The first one are the European Universities Alliances. We now have 41 of them, indeed more than the initial plan that was 20, because you have shown us your enthusiasm, that you were ready to go for it. And that is why member states now agree to support more of them and to support up to 60 of them. So 60 European Universities Alliances by mid-2024, involving about 500 higher education institutions. So strong political support for this objective, together with working towards a joint European degree, which was part of the point that was hugely debated in the council, because we want students graduating from joint transnational programs like the ones that you're going to set in place as part of your European university. We want them to get a degree that recognize the huge added value of the training that you are going to provide them, in a training that is transnational, that provides transdisciplinary approaches, that provides strong cooperation with the innovation ecosystem, with researchers, companies, regions, and cities. And it's very important for the students to receive it as a strong symbol of a strong European identity. So member states have agreed to work together on co-developing the European criteria on which we will start with a joint European degree label that could be awarded to students before moving to a joint European degree. So we are now in the coming weeks and months work together with you, the wider higher education community and the member states to co-develop these European criteria. Just to be clear, a joint European degree will be delivered by the member states or the institutions as it is now. The treaty does not give the competence to the Commission to deliver degrees, but the added value is that it is based on common European criteria, and that the objective is also to address the challenges that many universities are facing when putting in place joint European degrees. And many of the recommendations that are already included in the recommendation just adopted are really a step forward in that direction by recommending member states to implement fully the Bologna tools, including the European approach to joint degree programs, but also to simplify the quality assurance of joint European degrees and to give more autonomy to the universities when it comes to developing joint educational programs, when it comes to the languages, when it comes to the proportion of online education, and a series of recommendations like that. So it's a very important step. As part of the flagships as well is a proposal to work towards a legal status for alliances of higher education institutions, based on a voluntary basis, of course. It's the same for the joint European degree and for the legal status. We are not imposing anything on universities or higher education institutions, but we are providing instruments, tools for those higher education institutions and those alliances that feel ready for it and that feel the need for it. And we know that a number of European universities are very eager and have expressed the need for it. So that is why we are going to explore it, and we are going to explore it with a first pilot that we are going to launch this summer, to pilot these first ideas and to test the European criteria for joint European degree label, and to test existing European instruments that can facilitate the sharing of resources, of data, of IT infrastructures, for example, between higher education institutions across Europe. And now as well, we have announced 50 additional supporting actions in the European strategy for universities that we are going to develop further in the years to come. But of course, member states have also a key role to play, as much as universities, in the implementation of this strategy. So we'll work together in the years to come on this plan to implement this strategy all together. And you, of course, as European universities, are leading the way. I'm very happy that Arqus submitted a new proposal to the Erasmus Plus call launched last year, so that we can continue supporting you in your activities, the activities of all European universities. Of course, it's not automatic. Now the proposal will be evaluated by external and independent experts, and we plan to publish the results during the summer. So we are very pleased to see all the progress that the Arqus Alliance has made so far, in particular when it comes to the embedded mobility. And I think I've read 200% increase in numbers of mobilities within the Alliance, which looks very promising. And we are now looking forward, of course, to the next steps and possibly even more joint activities, joint programs together. And we very much welcome new partners as well within the Alliance. So I wish you a very fruitful conference. I would have loved to be able to stay longer, but unfortunately, I have other meetings to attend. But nevertheless, I would like to take a few minutes to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this first speech. So as we heard, if somebody has some questions, sorry for the limited time, but here's the time to make them. To Vanessa Debiais-Sainton. Okay, so if we are all clear, we thank you again for your time and hope to see you in person soon here in Padua or in one of the places of the alliances. And thank you again.
With great pleasure. Thanks a lot. Wishing you fruitful discussions.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So it's time for our next speaker. It's Professor Massimiliano Zattin, Vice Rector for Postgraduate and Doctorate Programs of the University of Padua.
So, dear colleagues, dear students, I'm very pleased today to have a chance to talk about one of the pillars of higher education, which is doctoral studies. As you know, doctoral education is recognized as the first cycle in the Bologna process and is a crucial part of the EU's policies of achieving the European research area and of its funding programs. It is a very specific topic for this conference, but doctoral studies are considered one of the driving forces that contribute to the frontier research and to the development of our universities. Therefore, it represents one of the key elements on which our universities, and hence the Arqus Alliance, are built. I think that in all our laboratories and research groups, there is at least one PhD student, or PhD candidate if you prefer. So because of its importance, the nature of doctoral studies has been much debated in recent years, also within the Arqus network. In fact, at the end of the first leg of the project, the Arqus PhD Council elaborated a number of recommendations for the rectors that were intended to provide the basis for future activities. I start with these recommendations as we will discuss them in the next few minutes, and at the same time, they show the diversity among the partners. Looking at the priority ranks expressed by the different partners, we can see that some of them appear everywhere. For example, it appears that all universities agree on the implementation of the training offers through transferable skill courses. Then short to mid-term research stays are essential for most, if not all, the partners. In the case of significant periods abroad, these research stays could be recognized in the framework of a co-tutel agreement. But you can see also that some tasks receive very different importance. For example, the need for an Arqus certificate. So with this complexity in mind, a major question appears: which is the most effective model in the framework of the European University Initiative? Which kind of network organization can we imagine? There are no doubts about the large variety across the network. I give here some numbers. Maybe they are not completely correct, and sorry, I forgot to put Leipzig here. But they give us a quite good idea of what we are talking about. We go from, for example, 12 courses and 160 graduates per year in Graz, to 53 courses and 1,700 candidates in Minho, to 40 courses here in Padua with about 1,500 candidates. So as a whole, we have about 14,000 doctoral candidates in the Arqus network. And this is quite an impressive number. So difference in numbers reflects partly the size of the universities, but are due mostly to the rule of doctorate at a national scale and to local organization and management schemes. Just to have a broad idea, I report here a couple of slides obtained by a survey conducted by the European University Association in 2019. Here you can see the different rules of faculties and disciplines and the different importance given to the societal challenges. And here are the different goals. Most of the universities are working to prepare the next generation of academic staff, but not all agree on the rule of doctorate outside academia. However, there are no doubts about internationalization that has been highlighted everywhere as a key component to facilitate the development of research excellence and the quality of doctoral education. In 2005, the Salzburg Principles were established in the Bologna process as the basis of the reforms for doctoral education. Among the 10 recommendations that came out, I focused the attention to number 3, in which it is clearly expressed the importance of diversity. As we know, Arqus is made by a number of institutions with many relevant differences, but these diversities should be valued. We need to find the best procedures, the best practices to organize our doctoral programs to enhance the diversity value. 10 years later, the European University Association elaborated a document to define the pillars for international doctoral education. The first of them is about research capacity and capability. Research is the basis of doctoral education, and internationalization of doctoral studies needs a proper supervision, adequate funding, and wide dissemination of research outputs. The second principle is the international profile of universities. Universities must be engaged in international activities and networks, support joint programs, and an international profile of doctoral candidates. The third pillar is about the capacity of institutional structures to support and to develop international doctoral education. The last principle is about mobility, not only of doctoral candidates, but also of the entire staff, which is involved with doctoral studies. Supervisor, firstly, but also administrative staff, given the importance of sharing good practices. In this framework, can we imagine the setting up of a kind of facilitator, let's say, for international activities at network level? In other words, can we imagine a kind of Arqus Doctoral School or Doctoral Hub, whatever you want to call it? Is it worthwhile to spend time and energy for such a complex entity? I remember you that we are talking about 14,000 candidates. So which are the strengths, the weaknesses, and the opportunities of a doctoral education system at the network scale? So let's go to discuss the different elements and actors that are involved. The main actor is, of course, the doctoral candidate. In the past few years, there was a gradual change from a candidate-centered concept of doctoral studies to a more comprehensive vision which assures a professional development training for a range of skills that will be useful in their future lives and careers. The doctoral candidate should be trained in an environment that is international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral. The European Commission defined 3 learning outcomes, which are, first, the knowledge at the most advanced frontier of the field of study, then the most advanced and specialized skills and techniques required to solve critical problems. Demonstrate substantial authority, innovation, autonomy, and integrity. So we should support programs that encourage intellectual risk-taking and creativity. So once again, regarding these outcomes, which is the added value of a network approach? So let's go to see the supporting actor, the supervisor. Well, this figure is, of course, present everywhere, as the supervisor is the man responsible for guiding the research and teaching of the PhD candidate. However, some differences occur through the network regulations. For example, in Lyon, there is one thesis supervisor, whereas in Vilnius, is paired with the figure of consultant. In Italy, new regulations require at least one co-supervisor beyond the main one. In some cases, in some places, the supervisor has to be a member of academic staff, whereas in others, it can be non-academic. However, in the past few years, it appears that heavy reliance on a single PhD supervisor is not more robust. Sometimes with some differences at the local scale, as it is occurring here in Padua, the concept of supervisory team is rising. Candidates are overseen by a supervisory team, sometimes involving experts not belonging to the awarding university. And therefore, we have the chance now to extend this concept to an international level, with an interesting cross-fertilization of good practices and supervisory schemes. The framework is given by institutions. I already mentioned the differences that occur among the partners of the Arqus network. So now let's go straight to the point. Is the idea of an Arqus doctoral school or a kind of PhD hub worthwhile? So let's go back to the diversity issue. We start from the idea that exposure to a plurality of cultures, languages, and experiences enhance learning, teaching, and research. Cross-border education facilitates cooperation, provides academic exchange opportunities, and fosters knowledge transfer within and between societies. Cooperative partnership provides access to complementary facilities and resources, allowing to find synergies to develop common research capacity. However, such a cooperative schemes needs to be supported by institutional structures, not only by appropriate funding, but also by adequate administrative capacity. An Arqus doctoral platform could offer a super system that enhances, for example, the mobility, of course, and acts as a facilitator of the development of collaborative PhD programs among the project partners. It could serve as a collector for a course catalog of the didactic and research offered through the network. It could work for a quality assurance process. So if we accept such a framework, the consequent step is the possible certification of such activities. In the previous talk, we heard something about joint degrees, where a double, multiple, or joint degree is, I would say, much more than a period of a research abroad as a visiting PhD student. Joint PhD provides a fully integrated educational experience, which benefit of a plurality of research and teaching environments. Joint and dual degrees promote academic excellence, also by attracting top talents, and develop intercultural and international awareness. These degrees meet the demand of a globally competitive, knowledge-based economy. In terms of politics, they promote global citizenships and social justice. They foster upward social mobility, self-resilience, and personal growth. From an institutional and administrative perspective, international dual and joint degrees programs are a strategy for strengthening the relationship with foreign partners, increase mobility, and again could serve as a strong marketing tool for attracting talents. Partnership can enhance career prospects and graduates' employability. The value added by joint degrees is somewhat overshadowed by the challenges and the frustration experienced by institutional representatives working in very different education systems. This was also well experienced during the first leg of Arqus project. Legal obstacles are common. We can have restrictive immigration policies, cumbersome visa procedures. Recognition of foreign degrees and program accreditation can be very difficult sometimes. And moreover, there are often different cultural expectations, inequalities in power, and the need to ensure quality standards across partner institutions. So because of this, a correct approach to develop such programs should consider some major steps. So first, we need to start with a bottom-up approach to stimulate discussion, ideas. We need to create a group of people who put the basis for collaborations. But then, a top-down approach to policy decisions is strongly needed. We need a clear vision, clear goals, and clear decisions from academic governance. At the same time, institutional leaders should work with higher education governmental bodies to develop a framework that encourages some international collaborative programs. So I close with this slide from our Arqus website, in which basically all I said is already well summarized. Here we can read the key concept of Arqus Alliance, such as deep inter-university cooperation, joint governance structure, cross-cutting integration. So I think that we need to bring these concepts also to our doctoral studies, doctoral education. So today I talk about a very specific topic, but I believe that all the concepts that I mentioned could be exported to the different sides and fields of our academic life. You can read here in the first line the word ambition. Despite the complexity and the many difficulties, I think that we need to be ambitious. And I think that only with an ambitious vision we can be innovative, competitive, and attractive. And so let me conclude with a tribute to the 800 years of the University of Padua. Before the entrance in this room, you move through what we call the Hall of 40. As the rector said this morning, there you can see the portraits of 40 illustrious international scholars of different fields and countries that graduated here in the past centuries. Thanks to these people, Thanks to an international approach, our university could grow through the centuries and arrive here as a partner of this international alliance. And so I have no doubts to say that our past is the vision for the future. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Zattini, for your stimulating inputs for reflection.
Yeah, we go on with the next speaker of the session, Patrycja Matus, Vice Rector for International Projects and Relations, University of Wroclaw. Welcome.
Buonasera a tutti, signore e signori, dear friends. It is a real pleasure for me and a great honor to represent Uniwersytet Wrocławski in this historic building of the University of Padua. And to be able to speak in such a place of a long history and, of course, on the occasion of the great anniversary. I would like to express my acknowledgement for the Padua team for organizing the annual conference of Arqus, but please allow me also to express my acknowledgement to the Granada team, especially Professor Dorothy Kelly and Fernando Galan for the coordination of the application group, who worked in the past weeks on the new perspective of Arqus. This is a great honor to be a new member of the family of the group, together with the University of Minho. Okay, I started with the thanks, like on the Oscar ceremony, and now it's time to say something serious. So please allow me to say a few words about the University of Wrocław, and if I may ask you to show the short video. We would be happy to have some pictures.
Wrocław is my first European city where I study and live.
I came back to the University of Wrocław.
I'm very happy to be here, and I don't want to think about leaving at all.
I study intercultural mediation at the University of Wrocław.
We do a lot of scientific experiments using some of the high-tech devices.
Ich bin Luisa und ich komme aus Lüneburg in Deutschland.
Mitt navn Nikolai Stensland Iversen Shevchuk, og jeg kommer fra Sømna i Norge.
ผมชื่อเซียแล้วผมมาจากกรุงเทพประเทศไทยครับ
Jina langu ni Priska Tumwijuche. Mimi nakuja kutoka Kampala, Uganda.
Benim adım Yücel Yılmaz. Türkiye'liyim. Ankara'da yaşıyorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, the University of Wrocław is one of the 10 research universities in Poland, comprehensive one. We are located in the fourth largest city in Poland with 650,000 inhabitants. We are very proud of our region, not because of the excellent location in the close proximity to Prague, Berlin, Dresden, and Vienna, which is a great importance for our international relations, but of course the cooperation not only with our neighbors, but only with those being further away. Let me mention just a few numbers to say something about my university. We are about 26,000 students, 1,200 PhD candidates, 10 faculties, 3,000 employers, and a lot of positive energy, and we hope this positive energy can be part of Arqus. The University of Wrocław is involved in mobility programs and puts a lot of efforts into developing of diversified offer to our international students, as you showed on the short video. We offer a lot of programs in English on all levels, bachelor, master, and PhD. But our goal is to develop and work in the international area because We strongly believe in the common European education, as it was stressed many times during the morning session. Today I would like to ask two questions. What does it mean for the University of Wrocław to be a member of Arqus, and what do we expect from this cooperation? But please allow me to start with some personal remarks. When I was a student, I know from some of students in the audience, it seems to be ages ago, but when I was a student in the beginning of 90s, as a student from post-communist country, it was very difficult for us to get the scholarship and be a part of the Western universities. But I was the lucky one, and I got the Sokratis Scholarship at that time, which opened the door for me to the Western universities and higher education. When standing here makes me happy because it was a long way from this scholarship to the place when I arrived. But this scholarship really opened the door to an international career and international cooperation, which always has been a part of my professional career. So this is just to remind all of us how mobility and international cooperation might be important for individuals, but also for communities. When I started my research career, international cooperation in academia was mainly associated with research projects, publications, conferences, workshops, and the fellowship was somewhat related to teaching, but the main purpose in my case, and many scholars in Poland, was of course the mobility was related to research. But as Dr. Erdon Polak said in this morning session, today we live in a very challenging and fast-changing world. In my opinion, our responsibility for the future generation is bigger than before. In our responsibility to educate young people who will be active citizenship, and I really believe that we have to put the efforts to educate and support the EU active citizens, who will together create a democratic space for development, for whom values such as human rights, democracy, anti-discrimination, and the rule of law will be the foundation of all activities. Together, in Arqus, we stand a chance to create such a space and didactic offer. Responding to challenges, adopted a new technology possibilities, emphasizing mobility, which is the basic for the exchange of thoughts, gathering experiences, and building the competences for the future. So for the next generation to come, Europe would not only be a slogan, not only be the theoretical concept, but would be the reality, the value that they believe in. Mobility of academic staff and students has always been a key aspect of internationalization in higher education. This is the main priority of the European Commission, published in the communication on achieving the European education area by 2025. Although the tough experiences of COVID-19 pandemic, we learned that mobility may not be limited to the physical one. So a discussion about the blended and virtual mobility, I know that some colleagues don't like the virtual mobility, but it's the subject for another discussion. But it started to be important again and discussed. Existing evidences confirm that virtual forms can serve as an effective option to address challenges related to cultural awareness, intercultural collaboration, and transversal or soft skills. As Professor David said this morning, the virtual forms can also be very inclusive and can reduce costs to allow more people to be internationally active. Nevertheless, virtual forms cannot completely provide the same kind of learning experiences compared to physical mobility, where many of the benefits are gained from immersion. And I really believe that this immersion in another culture is very important for us to gain the knowledge, the experiences, and the emotions which are related to our cultures, backgrounds, history, and languages. And it makes Europe really beautiful. A significant shift to virtual forms would present a wide range of challenges as well in terms of planning, logistics, and of course the development of platforms or other systems and the provision of technical support on the implementation of the use of this system. And I really believe that the digital Arqus is going to be something very important in the months and years to come. There is a general agreement among scholars that none of this form of mobility is an alternative for replacing others. Each form adds an enrichment of education in a different way. However, new technologies, technical possibilities enable us to be virtually active in almost everyday contact with teachers, scientists, and students all over the world. For me, when it comes to the Arqus Alliance, we should take advantage of long, short, and mixed mobilities, so that international context should become an everyday reality and not something unique for all members of our community. I would like to believe that my future student would start thinking about their career and thinking about our 8 institutions and not only the University of Wroclaw. Arqus has promoted diverse forms of mobility, and in the new application, it has strengthened both physical blended and virtual mobility. In my opinion, students are very important, of course, but this is not the only target group for our activities in the Arqus Alliance. We speak about diverse communities, and it was strengthened in the new application. We should think about the mobility, exchange and learning process of academics, but of course for our administrative staff as well. Through the websites and virtual platforms, we should connect our community members and allow them easy access to the relevant opportunities within Arqus. I'm sorry. I would really like to believe that the information about our activities would be accessible for every member of our community, and that we start thinking about Arqus as being our common project. Teaching mobility is an important tool for improving the quality of study programs for all partner universities. In my opinion, learning mobility has a positive effect of individual teaching skills, strengthen the development of an academic career, and can provide a common framework for academics working in similar fields. Such a framework can be the starting point for development of joint academic offers. We know that joint bachelor's and master's degrees programs are very important for the entire Arqus offers. But in my opinion, the future of our education is the flexible offer of micro-credentials, for example. Hybrid courses offered by our universities open not only for students, but also for graduates who want to learn new skills, broaden their knowledge, and stay in touch with the latest results of our research. We live in an increasingly intercultural societies, and diversity is and will remain the future of Europe. The aim of our activity at Arqus should be to help students to gain this intercultural understanding that will be crucial for their future careers wherever they choose to go. For this skill, mobility and challenging ourselves in cooperation in Arqus seems crucial. Mobility offers a wider set of benefits, including the development of personal and professional skills and competences, increased adaptability to the new and changing environments, developing a sense of European citizenship. And I would say it once again, I really believe that this building the sense of belonging to the European values is something which is very important for us as a community of Arqus. In conclusion, the strength of Arqus, in the opinion of the University of Wroclaw, if I may say so, should be based on strengthening the mobility and exchange between partner universities, the physical and the virtual mobility. And activities should be addressed the challenges related to cultural awareness, intercultural cooperation, and transversal or soft skills. In my opinion, virtual formats are different from physical mobility, as I said, although they can be perfectly used as a complement or alternative for physical mobility. By incorporating a combination of both and blended and virtual forms of mobility into a curriculum, students have greater opportunities to integrate an international learning experience, and we might be more inclusive for everyone who can be in touch with other members of the community on everyday basis. And I really hope that this joint PhD Arqus School would be the reality, because I would like our PhD students to build a strong community working together, exchanging knowledge and ideas, and because they are the future of research in Europe. We take responsibility for our students, for the young generation, but today we are also responsible for students from Ukraine. Their education was brutally interrupted by Russian aggression. And in the coming weeks, we will for sure have to answer the question, how do we engage and how we can help them? I'm very glad that Arqus has expressed his opinion on the war in Ukraine and that we were able to say together that we are against this kind of violence. I'm sure we share the same values, and I look forward to work with all partners in Arqus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your speech. Maybe we can ask you to join us back here on the floor, along with Professor Zattin and our moderator, Dr. Deca.
Yeah, again, as we did this morning, we have some time now for question and answer, so feel free to
raise your hand.
To raise your hand. We have a microphone running around, and yeah, let's join the conversation all together on these very important topics. Thank you.
So, do we have some immediate questions to the presentations? If not, I might start and perhaps pick your brains a little bit, because both of you underlined important aspects of both existing and future cooperation within European universities. How we can work together to make more flexible the frameworks that allow for joint doctoral programs, and how do we envisage the process so as to not only have top-down but also a bottom-up approach, and I liked that framework of designing solutions for the future, while at the same time stating that although the Alliance was very good in preparing joint programs, the future is in fact micro-credentials, and how we enlarge the vision on how we can make relevant and flexible degrees in the future. So all this in a context of constant crisis, as it has been continuously underlined. It seems that both of you went back to the basics, so went back to the core missions of the universities, So I'm just wondering, how do you see this network of networks, which is in fact what we will have with 60 European universities, as announced by Vanessa? We will have in fact a sort of European university safety net when it comes to preserving values and when it comes to making sure that our young people get the European citizenship opportunity that they deserve. So how do you see this network progressing? How do you think these core missions that you've referred to can actually become not just a safety net, but perhaps a place where, you know, we can launch our European ambitions when it comes to higher education even further? So how do we move from core functions to being in the driver's seat when it comes to European development? It's an open question. Please, Professor Matus.
Thank you. When I thought about the future of Arqus and our role in the Alliance, I thought about my students, and as I said, I would like them to think about the cooperation in everyday activities, not only because, okay, I referred to the personal experience from the past, and when I was a student, this scholarship was not accessible, and it was really, really difficult to get the scholarship. But now with Erasmus+, it's easier for our students to be mobile in the sense of going for one semester or two to the other country. But I would like the mobility within the Alliance to be a much more frequent experience than just 1 or 2 semesters during the BA or MA. It's the reason why I mentioned the micro-credentials and very diverse hybrid courses, because okay, pandemia was, or still is, a kind of bad experiences. But when I've been observing my researchers and professors, we have learned a lot. Okay, there are not many people from my team here, so I can say very honestly that I was really surprised by the fast learning experience of some professors who were very far from the technical innovations, and everyone learned something. So we are much more open and flexible to prepare hybrid courses together. I mean, not within one university, but among the partners, so that the students can go for shorter visits, summer schools, winter schools, or just the courses. I can imagine people coming for my short, fast course 1 week to Poland, but of course the part of it might be hybrid for other students. So the very diverse and different forms of mobility should be included in the curriculum of our students as a part of Alliance, not a mobility being one experience during the BA or MA, but just being something common and accessible, and therefore we need the platforms to have the update version of our offer, just to attract students, and not only students, but also other members of our community to be active, and to believe that now you have the offer of 8 institutions and not just from your own.
Thank you. Professor Zattin.
Yeah, first I liked what you said before, Patrycja. You say that you hope that your students in the future will be the students of Arqus, the Arqus Alliance. And I think that this is really what I hope, and this is the ambition that we need to have here. In terms of PhD education, I said that research is the core of the PhD studies. But in terms of network level, what I think is the real added value is to expand our lab here in Padua to a supervisory scheme which take the advantages to see many different options, many different ways to work, And in fact, the mobility schemes that we had in the previous leg, in the first leg, you know that we had in the action line 6, there was the mobility for groups of PhD. This was very interesting because they report a very different way to work from the place where they went. And this contamination is really crucial for the future. So we start from the basic values of our universities in Padua and your university, but I think that really Arqus give us the opportunity to have a, well, the network, the different networks give us the opportunity to have a much more goals, much more targets, much more ways to work, much different ways to work. Well, I agree. I would like to see my students say, we are students of the Arqus network.
Yeah. So to come back to that, just a quick comeback. Do you think Arqus should introduce mandatory mobility sojourns at PhD level, for example?
It's a tricky question, but when I say I for the mandatory courses, it's really against my DNA, but I'm against everything what is mandatory. But on the other hand, I really believe that PhD school is the time when you should start thinking about your career being international. There is nothing like national education or national research. We should believe in the cooperation, and we know from our experiences, because all of us are researchers as well, that it's crucial for the exchange of ideas, but methods and perspective is something which only can be beneficial for the final result of the PhD. So, mandatory. I think we have to find the way how to push all our PhD students to, you know, to go abroad without this mandatory regulation.
Yeah. I think they say I don't like the word mandatory. My colleagues do not like the word mandatory. Although our national rules that it should be mandatory to go abroad for the students. I hope that there will be a kind of natural evolution to go out. So I don't want to force anybody, also because the different fields of study needs different times and way to work. So if you have the best laboratories in the world here in Padua, why to go out? So yes, you can go out for some weeks, maybe to learn something else. And so transferable skills in this topic is very important. So transferable skills is one of the things that should be learned in a network level, really.
If I may add something, maybe we can offer some courses for PhD students in our institutions, which might be attractive for them to travel not only from the research point of view, but there are many interesting courses related to soft skills also, which might be interesting for students to come to Wroclaw, for example, just for a week or two to learn something maybe not strongly related to the research, but giving another perspective or gaining another skills.
Yes, thank you. We have a question there.
Yeah, I'm really happy because we had a discussion with the University of Granada, the PhD student there, and we said that we would love to see joint programs. And when you mentioned it, we are really happy to see that. And I have two short questions. One is that we can see how joint programs can work for political scientists or social scientists, but for historians, for instance, that it's mostly in native languages. How do you see the joint programs to be conducted? Because I know history in Poland, in Wroclaw, it's in Polish, for instance, and I don't know in other countries. And the second question is, are we planning also to have something about the precarious, how precarious is to be a PhD? Because there is a lot of discussion about, let's say, when we are going to companies, we are overqualified, and also some young researchers cannot get proposals because they get feedback that they are not very much qualified. So are we planning also as Arqus to discuss this topic about how precarious it is to be a PhD? Because we were also discussing about this, our future employment. Thank you.
I am not a specialist in PhD.
Professor Zattin, I think that
Yeah,
the second one was directed to you, surely.
The first question was about the differences between, well, if this joint can work also for some specific topics, not really. Yeah, languages. Well, we mentioned about soft skills. I think that whatever you are studying, soft skills are useful for everybody. Yeah. So I insist that the periods of row could go for these soft skills first. And then if you find something good laboratories, yes, of course, you can also go for these laboratories. But transferables and soft skills is the first target first. And the second question was about employability of PhDs. Yeah, employability. There are some papers that appears in the past few years that demonstrate that employability for PhD graduates is much higher, or higher, let's say, than the graduates. So I think that once again, and the employability is also enhanced by a period abroad. So the companies are looking for graduates that stays for some months abroad. So it's quite true that you need, as PhD candidate, to go out because for sure employability will be higher. Maybe not in all the fields, but in most of the fields, and we have the number to say this.
I would add something about the common courses or the joint offer in PhD schools. There are several skills like how to publish in internationally recognized journals, how to prepare a grant proposal, how to work on your postdoc application, etc., which are common for all PhD wherever you are affiliated. So there is a common ground for joint offers and courses for the PhD, where they can learn the skills necessary for the academic career, which are same for all of us.
Thank you. Fernando, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you for the three speakers and Ligia for the moderating. And I will take from your words, Ligia, and I will play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I think you mentioned that there were many attempts of trying to set a European university throughout the years, and none of them really fly out as we were expecting them. And even Erasmus at this stage still remains an opportunity for a few lucky ones. So really, if we want to reach a higher number of students and staff, we need to change cultures, and that takes time and it's difficult. So my question for the two speakers will be, from a university that has been already almost 3 years in Arqus and a newcomer, how do you see that it will be the most effective way to change culture in some sort of not rapidly changing institution like a university? And Ligia, if you allow me also to ask you, as a former head of secretariat of the Bologna process, how you change culture of the national governments in order to facilitate that change. It's not just about regulatory frameworks, it's also about allowing and trusting your universities to have this flexibility and innovation opportunities. And my very last thing, taking the chance, we are at the 800th anniversary. What will be your wish for the next few years for Arqus?
800.
Well, how do we make European universities more inclusive? Well, I think we have a good basis. Starting from the number of them and the number of universities included, that's already a step in the direction of inclusion that was made following fierce political debates. As we all know, the debate started from European universities being networks of excellence rather than inclusive networks of European universities which safeguard European values and identity. Second thing, which I think will matter, is that unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure, inclusion is not necessarily a core topic for universities historically. So European universities, with its approach towards inclusiveness and equal access, has actually brought the topic to the fore of all partner universities. And we've seen very active groups and communities which actually discuss how to improve inclusion in all partner universities and in the Alliance as such. And I think this is taking hold, and it's much more enthusiastic than in other parts of the work plan. So I think the fact that this is a topic mainstreamed by this European University Initiative really helps. And overall, I do believe that European universities are bringing more inclusiveness, at least in the core concerns of universities. And now I'll leave my fellow panelists.
In the political science, we speak about the agents of change. And these agents of change might be a role model for the alliances to spread the message that the mobility is something important and also should be not obligatory included in our everyday work. And I said that the technical possibilities and tools give us more chances to be active on the everyday basis. But I really believe that the physical meetings and normal in-person ones also gives us a sense of belonging to something. And I think we need to think, and I don't know the answer now, but we should think how to create the sense of belonging to the Arqus Alliance among the members of our community. To think more as a network and an alliance than the single institution. It is a challenge that I'm sure about this, but it's something which should be crucial, and that's the reason why I started with my students, and I hope that I'm going to convince them, let's start thinking about yourself being a part of the alliance and not only the University of Wrocław, which of course remains the closest to my heart.
And I can add that I hope that also my colleagues in the future will say we are part of Arqus Alliance. Because if I go around through the departments, actually not so many people is talking about Arqus. I don't know the situation in the other universities, but here in Padua, I can say that just a minority of people knows about Arqus. And I think that our task now is to go in the departments, in the research groups, talk to colleagues first, and we need to stimulate a lot the ideas, the discussion. As I said before, we need to create a basis for discussion, ideas and collaborations at all the levels, staff, students, and colleagues and professors. And then this is the first step to be really a member of the Arqus Alliance, to feel the Arqus Alliance.
But I think maybe the first Arqus was about creating the agents, and then they are going to push the change to the other member of the community, and it's going to be our challenge for the years to come.
Thank you. Do we have other questions, comments? Yes, we have one over there. Until the mic gets there. Just a clarification on the mandatory mobility. Well, if the Commission jumped from one call to the next from 2025 to 50, I'm just imagining the next step. Please.
Yeah, thank you. It was really interesting to see your approaches. And just a small comment. Firstly, I think in all this kind of discussions and, this joint sessions which we're having now, firstly, I think there has to be more students and more academic personnel. So this is one of the main things which we have to include. I think we should be more open, not only use these conferences only for administrative persons and those who are working only in Arqus. So that's the idea. Maybe it will be used anyways. Today's world is also, we're facing a lot of issues. We had COVID, we have war situations, we have like different. I know that university is a huge organization. When we were talking about European universities, we even seek for other goals. But I'm more interested because this discussion is about new approaches of European universities. Are we, or we should think about online university? Is it our approach? Because we won't run that far, because this question will come back. Students, or those who are high school students, they want to study from everywhere. And here, academias as we stand here, will have to change. And will we be that, will we be those partners who are on this change, or we will be step ahead? So will we step ahead or just backwards, going backwards, or staying just like a normal institution? It's a philosophical question. I know that there isn't right question and an answer to it. So mainly just I'm interested in your thoughts. Where we as a alliance should be going on. Thank you.
No. That's nice. So the question is, if students want to learn from basically everywhere, what role is there for European universities such as Arqus, right? That's the gist of it. Well, I think European universities are the litmus test, the sounding board of all European reforms that we've seen in the past 2 decades and a half. Everything that we talked about in the Bologna process, recognition, mobility, quality assurance, qualifications, trust, student-centered learning, social dimension, everything is tested in the concept of European universities. Even newer concepts like micro-credentials or virtual exchanges of all kinds are being incorporated into this. So if this concept succeeds, I think it should be able to withstand this test of the future, being able to learn from everywhere, but maybe the university remains the clearinghouse of what's relevant to learn from any place. So that's my personal take on it.
As I said, I strongly believe that we have to incorporate all new forms and test all possibilities, mixed methods in terms of virtual and real mobility. But I like your question about should we go online and be an online university. I tell you something, I would like to stay on the beach and do my lectures instead of sitting in my office. But on the other hand, I really love to come and have tough discussions with my students in the classroom, because then we can see each other and challenge each other even more than via the camera and internet. So, in my very personal opinion, no. I really like to meet the different personalities and with different backgrounds, and a little bit fight with one another during the seminars and lectures and challenge each other. But of course, I think that we should be, as university, we should be open for all new technical possibilities to have as well the online classes and online courses and use different methods. But 100% online, not yet. For me, of course.
Professor Zattin. Here in Padua, but I'm sure that also in your places, there's a big debate about this. And the rector is not here, but I know the answer. Her answer is no. Absolutely no. Of course, we promote the new way of teaching, as we have seen these days, but completely online, absolutely no. We have some universities in Italy, private universities that are working online, but it's different kind of job, different kind of education. And in terms of PhD students, I cannot imagine a biology lab in your home, in your room. So for this kind of research, you need to stay in the lab, right?
Sorry, I know I was supposed to close the session, but I see Eva wishing to say something, so perhaps we'll allow her as the last word.
I have two questions. The first one is really for Vanessa, but she's not here anymore, but it's a long-term one. I did a quick calculation. If the aim is to have 60 European universities by year 2024, and the average of each alliance is about 8, we're looking at close to 500 universities being engaged in one of the alliances. European University Association has 850 members, so that's 2/3. I'm not a mathematician, but that's pretty close to 2/3 of the institutions being a part of an alliance. So my first question is, what's the end goal? What's the end goal, and what happens to those who are outside the alliances? Are we only going to have 60 university networks eventually, and then the others will wither? That's the first long-term question. But the second question is, how many of the students who are here envisage one day, because Vanessa also spoke about a joint European degree, actually graduating with a degree from Arqus, an Arqus degree, rather than a degree from Padua or from Vilnius? Or is that also, in a sense, to be envisaged in the future? Because I think one of the major obstacles for visibility will remain the absence of a degree that has Arqus or any other name of the alliances that exist as part of it. So two questions that look really down the road.
Well, we can take them as food for thought, but if our panelists want to respond, then it's perfectly fine.
It was to you.
Well, I think the 8 in 800, if we switch it, then it becomes a very long-term discussion. No, it's obvious that notoriety and prestige do not come in 4 years that we had since the European University Initiative was launched. So the discussion about what happens when the EU money stop is definitely a discussion for our next meeting. And I would like to thank Eva for these last words, and surely our 2 plus Vanessa, our 3 panelists who have made this afternoon so interactive. So thank you all, and thanks to the audience for such an engaging debate.